Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be focusing on the Nemesis. So a couple of you guys have asked me to do a video on this bot because you are building it and you're not really sure, what are the best weapons for it. You may have actually even seen me build it on my own account, which I recently actually picked up. I was using the workshop to build components as well as getting components through the Battle Reward crates. I am in Champion League, so if you get the Champion League Battle Reward crate, you have some components for the Nemesis. So I figured, use the two to speed up the components for it and build it that way. But like you, I wasn't really sure, what weapons to run on it. So I used my Battle Rec account here to run a couple of builds to see, which ones were pretty decent or powerful enough to compete in Champion League. And I'm going to share that, or at least share my findings with you today. Before we actually get into that, I wanted to show you module setups for it as well. So first of all, if you're in, high-level Champion League, this is sort of the module setup I would run. So 2 thermo nukes as well as the last stand. Everyone has last stand pretty much in Champion League, or at least the highest level of play. The reason why I'm using thermo nukes though instead of heavy armor kit is because I find you want to boost the rocket damage as well as whatever weapons you are running. If you run heavy armor kit, you're only giving it more health, but what makes this bot deadly is actually the rockets, believe it or not, as well as the combination of whatever weapon you are running on it. So that is the setup that I would run. If you don't have the resources for the setup, I would do the cheaper version here, running Nuclear Reactor. Nuclear Reactor actually comes with all the bots, I think, or most of the bots that you have with passive module slots. You quite often see this module, and you can level it up. I think it's like 9 million to max out, so it's not too bad. And that's pretty much what I would run. And before I get into my top 3 builds here, there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention as well. So I did run Scourge, I did run Storm as well as Columbus. I found Columbus didn't really work too well because of the cooldown time of Columbus. Being that the Nemesis has a pretty short cooldown time of its shield, when you combine that with Columbus, it doesn't really work that well. It wasn't really working for me. I think, Orkans did a better job. Storm, I found when I was shooting players at about 400 meters and beyond, you weren't really doing that much damage to them. Plus, you weren't really locking them down. And that build, to me, you're kind of forced to do very close range brawling, but I don't think you really want to do it with this bot because of the shorter cooldown time of its shield, and also it doesn't really have that much firepower as far as comparing it to the Ares. So there's that, and also the Scourge, which takes a while to lock on. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, and now we can kind of look at my top 3 builds for the Nemesis, starting with the Nemesis with Orkans. Okay, so when it comes to the Nemesis Orkan build, what I really like about this build is the splash damage. The only thing though, the built-in rockets is 500 meter range and the Orkan is 300. You would think that Columbus would work better, but there's a reason why I prefer this over Columbus. So take a look at what happens, after I head behind cover here. Take a look at the cooldown time when I use my ability. So it's a very short cooldown time, so you have 8 seconds before you can use it again, but here's the thing, Orkans reloads faster than Columbus, so it complements this bot, or at least the cooldown, a lot better if you're looking at using your ability, getting out, firing your weapons at the player and then hiding. So Orkan tends to work a little bit better than Columbus in that respect. The other thing too, Orkans is more of a brawler weapon, so it allows you to actually cover close range, and then you have the rockets to cover medium range, so you're covering 2 distances as well, and it allows you to really utilize this bot very effectively. One thing though with this bot too, I found that when it came to actually using the built-in rockets, I'm not sure if this is a bug, but sometimes I can't manually aim to the side of a building or a wall to hit a player with splash. You're going to see quite often, I think in my clips here, when I fire my rockets, it fires directly at the player. Like I can't manually aim it. So I'm not sure if that's a bug, but I'm sure many of you who have Nemesis understand, what I mean by that. Anyways, what I've done was I've gathered some footage here to show you, this particular build. Pay careful attention to, the reload time of my orkans, as well as the reload time, or at least the cooldown time of the ability, and you'll see, why it works so well. And I found that actually when I was running a couple of other builds, it always came down to the reload time of that weapon. The ones that reloaded pretty quick tended to kind of work better in combination with the built-in rockets of this bot. But anyways, we're going to hop on over to the next build now, which is the Nemesis with Corona. So you can see where we're going with this. It also has a shorter cooldown time, but I'm going to explain why I prefer that over the Storm build. Okay, so the next setup we are going to be looking at on the Nemesis is the Corona, and I was going to explain to you why I prefer, the Corona over the Storm. So one of the biggest things for me is when you are hitting a player, 350 meters to the 500 meter range, Corona tends to actually do more damage, I find, than the Storm. And it's not only that, if there's a lot of players kind of clumped together, Corona will lock them down. And what makes this bot very deadly is the built-in weapons. So if you lock down 2 to 3 guys and you hit them with the rockets, you're going to hit all of them with splash. So do keep that in mind. Storm is a very deadly weapon, but you need to get within, I would say, 150 meters and under. Now the thing with the Storm though is if you are going to engage a player that close, you only have 2 Storms to work with. So that's one of the things that I found. And I did run quite a few games, but I found the Storm just wasn't doing it for me. But like I said, with the Orkan build, the Corona has a very short reload time, so I found that it was actually working really well. And I think out of the 3 builds I'm going to show you here, the Corona and actually the Orkan build, those were my top 2 picks as far as the Nemesis goes. But anyways, I just wanted to show you a couple of clips here featuring the Nemesis with Corona. The next build that I want to focus on is the Nemesis with Tarans, because I know a lot of you guys have Tarans out there. I do, back from way back when the Taran entered the game. So I do have a lot of Tarans, and I actually really liked the Taran build. And just like the Orkan and the Corona, it has a short reload time. So let's take a look at the Nemesis with Tarans. Okay, and lastly we have the Nemesis with Tarans. So this build, I actually didn't really think much of it at first, and then one day when I was doing my one live stream, I decided to run it again, and I actually started to really like it. But just like the Orkan and the Corona, Tarans don't really take that long to reload, so you start to see a bit of a pattern here. Once you fire everything, I think it's like 5 seconds or so before you can reload and you can do maximum damage. We're talking with your plasma bolts. So yeah, that's one thing that I really do like about Tarans. If you compare it to the cooldown time of the Nemesis, the ability being that it's 8 seconds and 5 seconds, you can kind of see how it works really well together. So yeah, this is sort of my 3 top builds for the Nemesis. After running a good couple of games, I made sure that I ran quite a few games, and I came up with these 3. I like the fact that we have Tarans and Orkans, which are a lot cheaper compared to something like Corona. I did try in the past the Pulsar, even like ion weapons, the Wasp. I tried Scourge, which, as I said, I didn't really like because of the lockdown time. I think Scourge isn't too bad on a larger map, but on a map like this, especially when you're playing in like covered areas or like on power plant, you are going to find that sometimes you need to lock down a player and you can't lock them down fast enough. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. There is also the Vortex, which is a bit of an interesting one. I'm going to do a separate video covering the Nemesis with Vortex, because I had some interesting findings with that as well. So if you haven't yet subscribed make sure to do that and stay tuned for that video, which should be coming up within the next few weeks or so. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you as far as my findings go for the Nemesis. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and like I said, if you haven't yet subscribed, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.